Greetings, loved one. Today we're going to talk about how to prove non-physical abuse. Help us get these messages out. Please subscribe to our channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and please share these messages with others, because you never know, just by doing so, you could save a life. So how do you prove non-physical abuse in court? There's many steps you can take before you enter the courtroom. When trying to prove domestic violence in court, some survivors wear the evidence on their skin in the form of bruises, scars, and black eyes. They have medical records and recorded 911 calls. But if survivors of non-physical types of abuse, verbal, psychological, emotional, and financial, to name a few, there's often little, if any, hard evidence besides their own account of what they endured. In addition to securing an attorney, how can survivors best prove non-physical abuse in court, especially when they're trying to obtain custody of their children? We have a great article in which domesticshelters.org asked Heather Debrasini for her advice. Debrasini is a former deputy sheriff turned professional divorce coach, and she says, I support the person who's going through a divorce. I help them understand the language attorneys are using, help them organize evidence for the court, and help them prepare for the questions they'll get in court. She's based in Colorado but travels throughout the United States to help soon-to-be divorcees or coaches her clients via Skype. Debrasini is also a survivor of domestic abuse. Her own divorce and preceding custody case stretched for 9 years. After learning how to navigate the legal system, she knew she wanted to help others to do the same, and she specializes in high-conflict divorces, those that can't reach any kind of settlement, so both parties wind up in and out of court repeatedly. So let's look at their discussion. Domestic Shelters asked her, how prominent are high-conflict divorces when domestic violence is present? Debrasini says only about 4 to 5% are high conflict, usually involving high assets or kids. Those are the things that people fight about the most. And she says, and of those, anywhere from 35 to 80% involve domestic violence of some kind. She says that laws are not the same in every state. What may be considered abuse in California is not the same in Florida. DS.org asked her, I'm assuming it's far more difficult to prove non-physical types of abuse, such as psychological or verbal abuse, in divorce cases where a woman wants to retain custody of her children. Before a woman even enters what she assumes will be a high-conflict divorce, how can she prepare herself to have the best chance of securing custody? Debrasini said, get a therapist that specializes in these types of abuse. They will help you as a third-party perspective to tell your story. Even if you can get an advocate from a domestic violence shelter or go to group counseling, see if they'll testify on your behalf. This won't just be your word against his in court. DomesticShelters.org asked, does it help to ask your family, friends, or coworkers to testify on your behalf about the violence? Debrasini replied, if they're only party to hearsay, there's really no benefit. If they witness it happening, then the next question you need to ask is, how will having them testify impact my relationship? Would they feel like they are being put in the middle? It's hard to ask people to get involved in a high conflict divorce, and it might be better to preserve that relationship. DomesticShelters.org asked, what else can be used as evidence of non-physical abuse? Debrasini replied that the best way to protect yourself, writing or journaling as much as you possibly can. There is an app, which we'll have in the description of our video, where you can download your text messages and keep them in a file. Keep your messages brief and factual, and avoid emotion whatever you do. Emotion can't be proved in court, but facts can. And some states also allow you to record phone conversations so you can record threats from your abuser. We've included the link to this information regarding this app in the description of this video. DomesticShelters.org asked her, what about people who claim some women lie about abuse to gain advantage in a custody case? Debrasini replied that her experience is that the percentage of women who are trying to abuse the system is insignificant. The reality is that there are far more women who just give up trying to prove non-physical abuse because it's just so hard. You just want it to stop. You just want to live your life. You're literally fighting for your kids, and it's an overwhelming challenge to face. It's really isolating, and you feel like no one's going to believe what you're saying. It can be difficult, but it can be done. Deborah Cini tells her clients the only way that she'll work with them is if they do it with integrity. You must be honest and factual in everything you do. You're not out there trying to create or manufacture proof. And if you make a mistake, own it. Reasonably articulate why you made that choice. If you're doing that and being factual, you're letting the evidence create itself. When you go to court and you're talking to the judge or the mediator or the police officer, you can hand them your evidence of what's happening, accounts from third-party people who can back you up, and then you're no longer the crazy lady who's making all of this up. DomesticShelters.org asks, do many abusers use a custody battle as another means of power and control over a survivor? Deborah Cini says it's about control. It's about retribution. The only way to continue control is through the one thing they still have in common, the children. If the children are a viable means to an end, they'll continue to use it. Abusers use what works. The court looks at what's in the best interest for the children. Attorneys will tell clients your best case scenario is to hope for 50-50 custody. If the abuse was extreme, then out of fear that the abuse will be enacted on the children, they will try to get full custody. But unless it's a documented history, it's hard to get full custody. I love this advice. Having been a victim of domestic abuse and now being an advocate and investigator, I can say that everything she said is full of wisdom, especially when she said, if you're being factual, you're letting the evidence create itself. When you go to court, you're talking to the judge or mediator or police officer, you can hand them your evidence of what's happening and accounts from third-party people who can back you up, and then you're no longer the crazy lady who's making this up. Many times, abusers will be calm in court and the victim will be emotional. And the strategy on the part of the abuser is to make the victim appear out of control and crazy, as if she is either making all of this up or being dramatic over nothing. Evidence can't be changed. Evidence will prove the abuser's actions. Evidence is your best friend. With 1 in 3 women experiencing domestic violence worldwide and 15 million children witnessing the violence each year, the question is not if you will encounter somebody who's suffering violence. The question before God is, what will you do when you do encounter them? You could be the person who saves a life. You are called. We are all called to be champions for justice. And those who suffer violence need to know that those who love them and those who don't even know them will step out and reach out to them to give them the help and the courage they need to leave before it's too late. Help us get these messages out. That's the whole purpose of doing this. Please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and share these messages with others. By doing so, you never know, you could save a life. If you're a victim of violence, listen to me. You are loved, you are valued, you're intelligent, and you are beautiful. And God does not want you to suffer violence. He wants you to live free from violence in peace and tranquility. You're not alone. There is a way out. It's not your fault, and abuse is not love. If you're a victim of violence, reach out to someone today. If you find yourself in a dangerous situation, dial 911 for help. And if you know of a child who is suffering violence, tell the authorities. In our next episode, we're going to talk about what to do when you are threatened to not testify in court. Until then, God bless you.